Celebration.
We are back. Mr. Tyler Moore is in the house.
Good morning, Chad. How are you?
I am fantastic, sir. How about
Excellent.
yourself?
I'm doing well too, or I guess I could say groovy since Sean was just on before me.
Absolutely. And he gave you quite the introduction. You don't even know.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, he likes you. Likes you a whole lot.
Well, he has helped brought me back to my internal geekness, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when he opened, or in the process of opening Comics Cubed, I've got a handful of geek friends that have kept me in check, and
Sure.
I had been out of the comic scene for a number of years, and with Sean opening up downtown and just his dynamic personality and such, it's brought me back in touch with my inner geekness.
And believe it or not, when I compiled questions, people said, make sure you mention
Star Wars. Exactly. I was in anticipation of that since one of my first articles highlighted in the Perspective when I was running for commissioner did in fact bring some intergalactic skeletons out of the closet, if you will.
But
yeah.
I've seen you in the Polar Plunge wear those costumes.
Yes, and it was a note to self never to wear boots into the reservoir again in the middle of January,
right.
because those things don't empty well, and it's immediate ice on the feet.
Well, you kind of mentioned it getting started. So how did you get started into politics?
Well, I've always been fascinated with the process, never really active in it. As many know, my family has a local business,
right.
And so there was always the stigma sometimes attached that if you get involved politically, that there's the possibility of it hurting the business. And obviously, I work for my folks. I'm not the man. I still work for the man. And so there was always that concern. But in our title association, I had served a year as president, a number of years on the state board. But then 1 year as the association's president, and as president, I was accompanying our lobbyist a number of times during sessions the year of my presidency, and just getting thrown into the middle of that, and just kind of got my political blood moving a little bit sooner.
And you said, wow.
Yeah, so I started looking locally. I had a young family, and knew that, and I wouldn't be able to do anything necessarily statewide. Mm-hmm. And so again was kind of looking at the possibilities locally, and ironically had run into Chairman Dunn at lunch one day, and thought, I ought to check with him to see if what his thoughts are or what his suggestions might be, and he had seen me at the same time. I thought, what, Paul Raver's calling it quits. He might be a good fit to go. And so he and I started talking, and then I immediately ran it past committee, ran it past the two most important women in my life, my wife and my mother, to make sure that I had their blessing, and then just jumped in at full force. I spent some time with Paul. I started attending a handful of the commissioner meetings and then some of the council, sat through the budget sessions during the campaign, because it was one of those that I needed to turn on the fire hose and start drinking if I was going to get serious about it, and it's been good. It's been a fun ride.
Okay, what does it actually mean to be a county commissioner?
What I kind of relate it to, especially when I'm talking to kids, because ultimately, kids at any age, whether they're 5 or whether they're 55, say, so what does a county commissioner do? I say, well, we're kind of like a 3-headed mayor of the county.
Okay.
We're the executive branch of county government, and so handle a lot of the day-to-day executive operations in the similar manner that the mayor would. A mayor of the city, has more control over department heads, whereas we as commissioners, we work, as we kind of talked before, we work with the other elected officials. So even though there's a treasurer, an auditor, and an assessor, they're all elected, and so officials in their own right and head of their own departments, and so we work hand in hand with them to basically cover and make sure the county services are, but we can make recommendations to them. We just can't always tell them what to do.
Sure.
And I'm sometimes reminded of that.
Sure. And, when it comes to decisions and when it comes to making those tough decisions, I guess, for a whole bunch of people, do you have to have thick skin? Do you have to have that extra guard up all the time?
You really, and I think you do, because for the reason that I just explained. I mean, if there's an issue going on with one of the departments, I mean, obviously we have to work with the elected official that says, well, I'm elected, this is my office, and we can work together to find a solution. But also because we represent everyone countywide. I mean, I'm District 2 commissioner, which basically encompasses the majority, if not all, of Center Township. So the county's divided into 3 sections, with 31 kind of being the dividing line in and out of Center Township. So it's almost like a donut. District 2 is the City of Kokomo or Center Township donut, and then everything on the west side of 31 outside of that would be Commissioner Wyman, and everything on the east side now is Commissioner Bray. So because we represent everyone in the county, there's a lot of times that our decisions don't necessarily affect the, I guess, day-to-day life of those within the city limits, because obviously the mayor and the city handles those services, and then the majority of that. So it's a lot of it's outside of the city limits, dealing with drains and and sheriff's department, jail and such. And that's where I think some of the struggle is as well, is that unlike a mayor, I mean, obviously the mayor is a single executive of the city, and so he can sit in his office and make day-to-day decisions, and here we're doing this, we're doing that, and I want you to do this and you to do that, as department heads. Whereas commissioners, if I've got an idea or something that I need to address, I can't act on it independently without taking it before the board. And so in order to do that, with Indiana open door laws, we have to have an open public meeting in order to make those decisions. Now we can discuss things, if you will, over the phone, over the internet, emails and such. There's opportunities to call special executive or administrative meetings that we post notices for and such. But ultimately, the end decision has to be made in a public meeting, at a scheduled meeting, typically of the commissioners, which are the first and third Mondays of the month. And so sometimes, we're criticized at times for the slowness of how county government works for that reason. I mean, we can't just, get it, go it, and go. We've got to, it's someone like, let me check with mom and dad, or let me check, let me check with the wife, and say, let me check with Paul and Brad.
But that's a great question, kind of leading into how do you deal with the pressure of having to manage all the people, because you're not going to make even the county people happy all of the time. Especially when you're spending their money. So how do you separate that? How do you deal with that?
You just,
it just comes with the job?
It comes with a job. I mean, you roll with it. I mean, you take the criticisms as constructively as you can, because a lot of times, and I'll myself included, I mean, I was ignorant of the process as well. That you call your county commissioner and you want an answer. You don't want them saying, let me check it out and let me talk to the others, or you're welcome to come to our public meeting. And so, so I think a lot of that is educating the taxpayers as they call in or stop in at a meeting, and
which is very important. I mean, I don't mean to keep throwing these questions at you, but stopping in at a meeting is extremely important, or becoming aware, so that you're actually involved right at that time.
Absolutely, and really, it's unfortunate that a lot of our meetings, and even the county council meetings, aren't more heavily attended, by the taxpayers. Again, Commissioner Wyman, I think, has talked when he's been out talking to various organizations. We're the not so glamorous government, in the county, because we, a lot of what we manage, and the majority of our budget is the jail. Nobody wants to talk about the jail. What's going on. The courts. Everybody hopes that they don't end up in court, or the jail. And then the other one, taxes. Nobody likes to pay property taxes, but we still got to do it. And then the exemptions. I mean, if they were going up to file exemptions, if everybody's waiting for the last time, they're standing in line and trying to do that. I mean, so it's the not so glamorous side of local government, and so in some respects, it's I'll pay my property taxes and just hope that they're running the way they do until if there's a problem with the drain, then they're coming into the drainage board or contacting the surveyor's office. An incident, at one of the county schools, at at the jail or in one of the courts. I mean, so it is. It's I applaud Commissioner Wyman for now getting out and kind of doing a county government tour, if you were, and hitting the Rotaries and Kiwanis meetings and such, and kind of raising awareness and saying, this is what we do. You probably had an idea, but now come and don't hesitate to come in. I mean,
From our perception, I feel like, as living in the county, I feel like you guys are a little more accessible by doing things like you're saying.
Sure.
Because you're out there, you can ask simple questions. Even if I can't get an answer right away, I feel like sometimes I get an explanation as to what's going on. I feel like that's important. My next question is, what do you actually feel like we're going to have as a challenge coming up in the next year? What do we face that you feel like is a...
Well, I mean, as wonderful and as beneficial as the property tax caps have been for property owners to, I mean, taxes in Howard County are low relative to other counties, or other surrounding counties. But I think as valuations start to rise, or as they approach the caps, I mean, yes, that's going to level off and protect the homeowners or the property owners, as well as even commercial if they're hitting the 2% or even 3% caps. But I mean, that's going to continue to impose limitations on the revenues that the county is able to bring in. And so I guess our challenge is not only seeing the revenues being challenged, if you will, that it's the challenge for us as elected officials for the county is just to continue to look for more efficient ways to run the jail, run the assessor's office, run the recorder's office. I mean, do things, continue to have conversations with the city to look for opportunities to share services, like we still continue to do with the Planning Commission. And so that'll probably be the largest challenge, is just to see how the effects of the property tax caps, the recent annexations, the establishment of TIF districts that the city may impose. I mean, just all of those factors leading into the, I guess, restrictions or the limitations that would be placed on the revenues that come in, that then we need to, in turn, look at and see where we need to kind of continue to tighten up. I mean, the county employees have done an outstanding job, to date, keeping the belts tight and keeping things run as efficient as we have.
There's been great news coming out of both.
Right.
We have a lot to be proud of.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's we applaud the city and the mayor as well for his efficiencies and all that he's able to do. Still with beautification all in the community and still keeping revenues revenues in check, and but the county is as well. Again, it's the not so glamorous, and so we're not out doing the beautification. We're not out sprucing up sidewalks and stuff. But we've got probably the best county roads in the state of Indiana, or at least in surrounding counties. I mean, you always hear people comment that they know when they are entering Howard County or leaving Howard County when they're driving. But also the efficiencies in both the assessor, auditor, and treasurer's office. I mean, Howard County has consistently had on-time billings for property taxes, which again, people don't like to see those property tax bills come in the mail. But when you think about it, I mean, some of the counties to the south and a few to the north, that are still a year or two behind in getting properties certified by the state and getting revenues. I mean, they're spending down their reserves or looking to borrow monies, in order to continue to function in the county services that are mandated. Whereas Howard County, again, with the diligence of Jamie Shepard and her office, and Martha and Ann Wells, I know they've done the little switch back and forth between treasurer and auditor. But that consistency and the way that the three of them, as well as Sheila Pullen with Center Township, I mean, with the four of them, being able to communicate and work together, and their offices, gelling, if you will. I mean, that they're able to get the assessments in and items down to the state DLGF to get those things certified and back and on-time billing, so that we can continue to function and run as efficiently as we have.
Good. And you kind of mentioned it earlier, but the annexation, did that seem like a storm cloud on the horizon? Because I know when you're on those lines, there's different opinion from both.
Right.
You know, you're getting new services if you move into this in the city, but my taxes. Right. You know, do you guys see that as a storm cloud since they're actually being taken away from the county?
That, in a sense, yes. I mean, because once when the city grows and the county per se, the county areas outside the city limits reduces. I mean, that affects the amount of edit dollars that come in. With the annexation, we receive a lot of phone calls saying, "What are you guys doing as commissioners? How are you letting this happen?" It's like, well, they can legally do it. I mean, it's we can speak out against it and say that it's going to do this or that, and express our concerns. But again, I applaud Jamie Shepard. In getting out and having the numbers and helping those in the annexed areas to get an idea of how their taxes are going to shift. And the services, yes, some will immediately get the services from the city. Absolutely. And then those I think it's 3 years to provide the mandated services to those annexed areas. But yeah, as the city grows, obviously it does tap into what the revenues that the county will receive, and yeah, we see it as a storm cloud. I mean, there's always the possibility. There's always been the talk. I think even in McKillop's administration, that he had the plans for the major East Side and West Side annexation that didn't come to fruition. But then that Mayor Goodnight then morphed and ran with. So yeah, there's always been that on the horizon. Not knowing how the recent plans for annexation will fall into place, but I mean, looking at the possibility of that. But then what we're also looking at as well is the establishment of TIF districts, which are are districts that municipalities can designate through the redevelopment board that they create, which then in a given area, once it's designated, any capital improvements, any increase in the assessments over a certain level, those revenues go back for use for infrastructure and improvements within that designated area. I mean, so because any increases in those tax revenues after that baseline's established, I mean, that's monies then that doesn't come to the county, the townships, the schools. I mean, so we're working hand in hand with the townships and the schools as well to say, okay, if these come out or get established, or if these, kind of the what ifs, this is what you can anticipate. I mean, so we're almost in the business of educating as well and helping others to,
because it's a big deal. People don't understand.
Right. And
lastly and briefly, I want to talk about the relationship between you guys and the city. Okay. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of he said, she said. What do you say about that?
Well, it's sometimes it gets blown out of proportion. Yes, there are a number of times that we may not agree on how the county has chosen to spend economic development, because that's really the I guess where a lot of the recent interaction or conflict has come. It's like the mayor's been with special projects and such, and asking the county to partner, and we have partnered in a handful of them, and we're partnering with the city on the nickel plate. We partnered with them in extending North Street out to the FedEx terminal. And so there's a handful of things that we've done in partnership, in collaboration with the city, and again, not being part of the process prior to my election, and not knowing how contentious a lot of things were before I was elected. I mean, I think in the last 4.5 years that I've served, that things have, what I've heard from my predecessors and others, that that the city and county relations are much improved than they have been in the past. Yes, there's still times that we're going to disagree, and obviously as recent as last year, the EMA and weights and measures, discussion that was a joint operation as well between city and county, and the city's decision to allow the county to take it over. Yes, there were challenges and that and I guess a little bit of conflict, but I think a lot of times that it's like I said, it's exaggerated at times.
Sure. But you're still building
we're still building those bridges. There may have been a few charred, but they're still in existence. We're still meeting. We're still looking at what can be done jointly, as well as what can be done individually. So.
Because let's be honest, everybody has the same goal.
Right.
It's we want to work, play, and live
right.
here, and we all have to do it together.
Right.
And we want to make this as exciting as we possibly
Absolutely.
can to draw new business, to draw new families. So
Absolutely.
I think you guys are doing a great job.
Well,
I've
thank you.
That
appreciate it.
Just even coming from where I sit. So
great.
I appreciate you coming in today.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity.
I know we're going to have you in even more because there's so many other questions that I didn't even get to today. So. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you so much for coming in, Mr.
My
Morris.
pleasure.
I really appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you all.
We will catch you next week. Don't forget, the St. Patrick's Day is going on. Get to the Humane Society, 713 North Elizabeth Street, 452-6224. Clark is waiting. He's absolutely waiting for his forever home. Have a great weekend.